Bit parking this morning, isn't it?
Racing.
Yeah. We'll stop moving around a bit, won't we?
Yeah, run up and down on the spots. Lovely.
Sorry, people. Sorry. Another time.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Archers Pension Fund Committee of the Nottinghamshire Pension Fund. As always, I'm James Gamble, Chair of Nottinghamshire Pension Fund, and I welcome everybody, including all the elected members, the viewers online, pensioner reps and trade union reps, and of course our dedicated officers here at Nottinghamshire County Council. I'd also like to welcome our new advanced democratic officers, not new to the council, but new in that sorting out the agenda, recording minutes for the Nottinghamshire Pension Fund. So I welcome Catherine Harkleroy, who's taken over from Dom, and we wish Dom all the very best at the previous meeting. Okay, thank you. Right, just a kindly reminder to viewers online, the meeting is being broadcast live on YouTube, so viewers can hear the presentation and questions of today's meetings. And of course, Pension Fund Committee meetings tend to be quite long, so folks, do keep watching. I'd like to now all members, officers, pensioner representatives, trade union reps and advisors to introduce themselves as always, and we'll do a round robin. I've introduced myself, so over to you, Catherine.
Catherine Harkleroy, Advanced Enterprise Services Officer.
Neil Timms, I'm the pensioner rep.
Graham, representative of Nottingham City Council.
Is that Frank Hall, representing Nottingham City Council?
GMB Union.
William Bourne, Independent Advisor.
Sarah Stevenson, Group Manager, Business Services Centre.
Jane Cheney, Pension Fund Governance Officer.
And Kieran Guilfoyle, Investments Officer.
And Dean from Rushcliffe Borough Council, representing boroughs and districts.
Stuart Matthews, Nottinghamshire County Council.
James Rawson, County Councillor for Kimberley and Nuttall.
Councillor Borough House from Mansfield.
County Councillor for Bingham Workshop West. And Councillor John Clark, Arnold South.
Councillor Mike Introna for Retford East.
Councillor Harry Old for West Bridgeport West.
And Councillor Richard Butler for Cockeray, Nottinghamshire County Council.
Vice Chair of the County Council, Vice Chair of the Pension Committee. Thank you.
Tamsin Rabbits, Head of Pension Fund Investments.
Okay, thank you very much, folks. I'd like to welcome the substitutions for today. We've got two councillors substituting who bring a lot of knowledge because they've been on the committee in previous years. That's Councillor Mike Introna and Councillor Butler. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you.
Okay, right. We've not got any members of the general public here, but they might turn up later on. So before we begin the meeting, I'd like to remind those members of the public, should they turn up, that placards, banners, advertising materials and similar items are not permitted in any committee meeting and must be covered or removed. Failure to comply may result in that member of the public being asked to leave the meeting. Members of the public should remain seated during any debate and not do anything to endanger the health and safety of any person. Members of the public may record proceedings, report all public meetings. However, any person recording must not distract from the good order of the meeting. And please, this is for everybody. Either turn your mobile phones off or put them onto do not disturb, and that also includes other electronic devices. Thank you very much. So we now crack on to agenda item number 1, which is minutes of the last meeting. The last meeting was held on the 12th of February 2026. And you've got the agenda pack in front of you, councillors. So I'd just like to ask members, may we take a show of hands that everybody approves the meeting? I'd like to have a seconder first on that one.
Second, Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baz Chowdhury. May we have a show of hands to approve the minutes from February? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Approved. Lovely. Now we go to agenda item number 2. That is, of course, apologies for absence. And I'm going to ask Catherine Harker-Royd to confirm any apologies and or substitutions. Over to you, Catherine.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Butler is substituting for Councillor Pearson, as you said. Councillor Trona is substituting for Councillor Fezzik, as you have said. Councillor Vernon has given apologies, along with Councillor Polk and Chris Keane.
Okay, thank you very much, Catherine. So, do we approve the substitutions, apologies? That's all we do. Okay, yeah, thank you. Right, so now we go over to agenda number 3, declarations of interest by members and officers. Does any councillor or officer have any interest in any matter on the agenda that they may need to disclose? No, no members or anybody present here has any declaration of interest. Thank you very much. Rapid progress. So we're now going on to agenda item number 4. Those members who've been here in previous years and also the members here now, pensioner reps, trade union reps, you're all aware of the triennial valuation. That's agenda item number 4. Before I hand over to Tamsin Rabbits, our investment fund manager, to introduce the report, I would like to move the recommendation on page 12 of the agenda pack. And that is, I'm just going to remind you that the Nottinghamshire Pension Fund Committee notes the results of the triennial valuation of the fund as at 31st March 2025. Yeah, that's it. And I'm going to ask for a seconder, please.
Second, Chairman, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Baz-Chowdhury. And I'm going to kindly hand over to Tamsin Roberts. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As members are aware, the latest triennial valuation took place as at 31st of March 2025. The actuary presented the results at our AGM in January, and the final report and rates and adjustment certificate will be published on the Pension Fund's website on 31st of March 2026. The latest draft is appended to the report, and no substantive changes are expected. The fund has a funding level of 99%, fractionally down from 100% in 2023. The valuation is based on a set of long-term assumptions relating to key metrics such as inflation, investment returns, and mortality. Experience may be different from these assumptions in both the short and longer term, and so funding levels may decrease or increase in future valuations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Tamsin, for giving your report. Does any elected members, pensioner reps or trade union reps have any questions or items they'd like to raise for Tamsin at this committee? No? Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I can see you, Councillor.
Yeah, just a query. It's good that 99% funded as opposed to 100%, and given all the challenges that have been going on since before the current crisis we're in the world. But I mean, I know it's a bit like crystal ball gazing, but how do we feel about sort of whether things are going to get worse, shall we say? And I know you can't be absolutely precise, but are we taking steps, or what are we doing given local and national situation as to if it will decrease even more? But that's not to take away from the fact that it is still very good at being funded at 99%. So I'm not trying to raise unnecessary alarm bells, but really sort of do we want to comment on the situation?
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Butler. And over to William Vaughan. Thank you.
I will talk more about what's happening in the short term in my when I have to speak under the investment advisor's report.
Okay.
I think just in terms of this actuarial valuation, there is a considerable degree of prudence in it. And yes, what is happening in the Middle East has potential to be really quite negative in the long term. But there's very little we can do right now to actually affect that. And we're really better off just sitting on our hands at the moment, and then take a kind of more recent view on what might happen in the future. Does that help at all?
It does. I assume that would probably be the answer, but I just really wanted us to be at least aware of that's what we might just have to do, just write it down.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, William. Thank you, Councillor Butler. Anybody else got any issues to raise on this one? Okay, right. So, got here. Right. So let's just take a vote then that we approve the report on this triennial valuation. Those for, please. Okay, lovely. That's carried. Thank you. Right, we now move on to agenda item number 5. And there's been an awful amount of work to do on this in such a short space of time, and it's the Fit for the Future update. And again, before I hand over to Tamsin to introduce the report, so let me get my notes. Okay, right, so a kindly reminder, it's on page, so if you look through your pack, page 78 of the agenda pack. This is an update on the government's Fit for the Future programme. I'd like to request a seconder for this one.
I second this, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Vaz Chowdhury. And we now kindly hand over to Tamsin Roberts again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The committee has received multiple reports and a training session about the government's proposals for the LGPS through the Fit for the Future review. The report sets out the background and timeline of the programme. The 4 key elements are pooling, investment strategy, local investment and governance. The pooling changes will have a significant impact on LGPS Central Limited, the fund's pooling company, as new LGPS funds join Central Pool. LGPS Central and partner funds have been working extremely hard to ensure that shareholder agreements and fiduciary management agreements are in place by 31st of March 2026, in line with the government timetable. And I'm pleased to confirm that final documents are ready to be approved today, following extensive discussions, independent legal oversight, and in consultation with the Chair and Vice Chair. The changes will also impact the management of the fund's investments, and this has been outlined to committee at the recent working party discussing strategic asset allocation, a conversation that will continue at this afternoon's session. Although the committee will still set the asset allocation, LGPS Central will have the responsibility for implementation. The fund will be required to include an approach to local investment within its investment strategy statement, and there will be further discussions on this topic. I now hand over to our Governance Officer, Joe Toomey, to describe the proposed governance changes.
Thank you. As mentioned, the report that you have in front of you does pick up those governance aspects of the programme, and it summarises the requirements around the fund having to have a governance training, conflicts of interest and administration strategy. You'll be aware that we obviously have some of those documents in place already, so they'll need to be reviewed, and some new documents drafted, which will need to reflect the guidance when it's issued. The report also talks about the requirement to appoint a senior LGPS officer and independent person, and that the fund must be subject to an independent governance review within each valuation period. Information provided by MHCLG indicates that the guidance in respect of the majority of these areas will be published alongside or closely following the Pensions Bill receiving royal assent, with any outstanding guidance, specifically thinking of the administration strategy guidance expected later in the year. Looks like the third reading of the bill is on the order paper for the House of Lords business today, but there's no indication as yet of comments timeline. Implementation information included in the reports based on the indications MHCLG provided at the conference in January 2026. We've had no formal updates since then about any changes to the date on which the bill is expected to receive royal assent. So the current expectation is still that implementation will commence from the 1st of April.
Thank you very much, Tamsin and Joe, for the introduction to the future reports. Awful lot going on in such a short time frame. We're blessed at LGPS Central, a very professional pension pool, and they give all credit to Townsend and other officers for their due diligence within this process, working across tight timeframes. Do any members have any questions or items they'd like to raise on the Fit for the Future update? Yes, over to you, Neil Timms.
Just a quick one, Chair, if I may. It's concerning the independent person. Is it envisaged that that person will be appointed internally or externally? I only ask because having been an independent person previously, I've never considered the role particularly independent. Because I was making decisions about people who were employees of the organisation I worked for. It's a lot.
Thank you, Neil. That's a very good question. Who would like to answer this one? Maybe Townsend. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the independent person would be from outside the county council to ensure they were independent.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions on the update? Yes, Councillor Martin Trainer, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I remember from my time previously on this committee when there was discussions about pooling, set out straight away that our primary focus is our fiduciary responsibility to our pensioners and the pension fund. And I just wonder if we are being forced into pooling by this government, the previous government before that, how that impacts us. Because if there is an increased reliance on the LGPS Central, does that risk reduced local control of our investments for our pension members? Does that risk loss of opportunity to take any dynamic decisions in and around investments? And similarly with the local investment funds, whilst I think we all want to see investment of our fund in local infrastructure, local projects where we can, if that's at the cost of investing in something that doesn't have the same return as something not locally, that has an impact on our pensioners. And how are we sitting with that? What has been done to challenge that, if we're going to challenge it? Because we can't be the only council, and the only council's pension fund that think that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trainer. I've got a few questions there on the pooling process and Fit for the Future. Over to you, Townsend, on that one. Thank you.
I'll give it a go. I might have lost some of the steps, so you might need to.
And I understand I've been away from it.
The fiduciary responsibility of the committee remains. That is, as you say, the top priority for all the members of the committee. However, you are absolutely correct that some of the decisions will no longer be made by the committee or by the officers of the council. They will be the responsibility of LGPS Central. LGPS Central, through that, inherits some of that fiduciary responsibility, and they will need to consider how members in the decisions are taken. On the local investment, we are having and will have discussions on local investment and the form that that might take and how it will be organised.
Yeah.
However, all local investment will be made with an aim to deliver returns for pension funds commensurate with the risk of the investment. So this isn't a handout or a grant pension fund money, and it needs to deliver returns for the pension fund. Have I missed anything?
I don't think so. I think the only question I would then ask the committee to consider going forward, I'm not part of the committee, is if we see that returns potentially aren't what we hope for, or we see the imbalance between assets and liabilities growing, then what options do we have as a county council pension fund committee to either say, no, we're not doing that, or challenge what's being done or proposed?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Trainer. What we have done so far, and we've done really well actually, this committee, since it formed last year, is we've challenged those investments that haven't reached benchmarks, and we've done really well, and we've got discounts from those. So we've looked at it. I've met with the client reps at LGPS Central, and one thing that we will always do at this pension committee is we're going to look at investment return, and we will always challenge LGPS Central pension pool. One thing that takeaway that I've got from all of this is how free and open the LGPS Central are in dialogue, and they're quite willing to meet with us and speak to us openly about things. And I feel that the officers that they've got there at present are very competent individuals, and hopefully we're going to still get some really good returns, but keep those investment fees down. We don't want the fees going up. Now we're going back into the pension pool with all our investments. And I'd like to add that bit, but do you want to add any more, Tamsin?
Just to say that it will be an important part of the role of officers and the committee to hold the pool to account, and going forward we will expect to see them quarterly at these meetings reporting on investment returns.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Got William, you just raise hands over to William Bourne. Thank you.
Just one very quick add-on to that is an important part of the independent person's role is going to be to help the committee hold the pool to account. But there is a great deal of debate as to how easy that's going to be, because it isn't going to be easy. Can I just raise another? I'll just give the committee a heads up on another issue, and I have two other issues. One is that, as Tamsin said and Joe said, the legislation will not be in place by the 1st of April, which means there's a bit of a gap where there's a kind of expectation we're going to comply with the new rules, but they're not actually law yet, let alone guidance. And I don't think anything to worry about, but I think you should be aware of that. And there's a second gap coming up, which is where the pool is formally taking over a lot of responsibilities, including giving us advice, cash management, implementation, but actually they're not ready to do it either. So there's another big gap between really the 1st of April, and it could last, I mean, years, to be honest, till they're really up and running. And again, I'm not saying we should do anything about it, but I do think you should be aware of it.
Thank you, William. That's a really good point. This is obviously one of the issues where all the pension pools are trying to run to tight time frames set by government, not always realistic, are they? Have we got any other questions from members on this Fit for the Futures update? Right, one question I'm just going to ask is, we're going to be appointing a senior LGPS officer who will work with LGPS Central Pension Board. They'll be employed here. Whereabouts are we on the appointment in terms of timescale on the LGPS officer? Thank you.
I would say at a very early stage, we've had to go at putting together a job description, but the role is not created. That will need to come to committee in due course.
Lovely, Tamsin. Thank you for the update. Does anybody else have any items they'd like to raise on this one? No, thank you very much. Oh, Councillor Baz-Chowdhury, sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'd just like to highlight what you just said earlier, Chairman. It is the LGPS Central, it's nothing to afraid of. So we are in good hands. So basically, it was strength, you know, like question we get from Councillor Turner is fantastic. But I mean, we are engaging regularly, and we have to make sure we deal with the right service to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baz-Chowdhury. Right, if we've got no further questions, that update was just for noting. Okay, thank you very much. So we now move on to agenda item number 6. It's 11 o'clock, so we're in reasonable time. Agenda item number 6 is Local Government Pension Scheme LGPS Annual Conference of 2026. And before I hand over to Joe Toomey to introduce the report, I'd like to move the recommendation on page 84 of the agenda pack. And as a kindly reminder, folks, that recommendation is that the Nottinghamshire Pension Fund Committee notes the key topics of discussion from the LGPS Governance Conference of 2026. And before I hand over to Joe, I'd like to request a seconder. Thank you very much.
A seconder, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Baz-Chowdhury. And over to you, Joe Toomey. Thank you.
Thank you. You'll see that the report gives an overview of the topics covered across the LGPS Governance Conference. The session summaries are all described, and you'll kind of spot that there were a couple of common themes. A number of the sessions reflected on what had happened in the previous year since the last governance conference. There were also a number, as you would expect, looking forward in terms of what is coming down the line for us in terms of the key national projects that Pensions Admin is working on, like dashboards, like a number of the things that we've brought to you in terms of the consultations that took place last year, and obviously also an awful lot of time where the sessions covered the other issue that we've all been talking about this morning, and that's the implementation of the Fit for the Future programme. Before I hand it back to the chair, I would also just like to do a final plug, if I may please. If any members who haven't yet let me know they're interested in attending any of the conferences for the coming year, would like to let me know as soon as they possibly can, preferably by the end of the week, please. That would be really helpful, and then we can start to make allocations for those.
Thank you very much, Joe Toomey, and I would just like to put on record that Joe attended the conference and was incredibly professional and diligent with all the notes that you took. You were there for the entire conference, where some members came in and out, you were there all the time. So thank you very much, Joe, for your presence at the conference and all the notes that you've taken. Thank you. Have we got any questions from any members on the conference for Joe? Councillor Harry, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. This is on page 83 about managing cyber risk. So, in that case, my question is, how exposed is the fund to data quality and cyber risk?
Thank you, Councillor Harrier. Good question. Right, yes, over to Sarah Stevenson to answer that one. Over to you, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take that in two parts. So data quality. Coming to the next committee will be a data improvement and action plan. So we are continuously reviewing the quality of the data. It's not just the responsibility of the fund, it's the responsibility of individual members of the scheme, but also scheme employers. So there's a raft of activity underway. Again, the committee will be aware that we've engaged in mortality screening service. You're also doing address verification for us. Also, in preparation for the pension dashboards, we've been looking or doing more deep dive into the quality of our data. So we've done a check on all the national insurance numbers, for example, that we hold. We use the customer service centre. When our calls go to the customer service centre, the first part of that script is that the advisor will confirm personal details held, so address. We're collecting email addresses. We're also collecting mobile phone numbers in preparation for the future implementation of a members portal. We use our annual pension leaflet to remind pensioners to advise us of changes of any of their personal details, and also it's an ongoing exercise with our scheme employers to ensure that they provide us with timely data. So, for example, when there's changes of members, new starters, leavers, changes, hours pay, etc., that they provide that detail to us in a timely manner. Obviously, data quality is an ongoing activity. It's not one and done. It is continuous, and we do provide our data scores back to the regulator on an annual basis. I think, as Joe mentioned earlier, whilst we have an admin strategy, and I have spoken before at committee, I think there's a need to review it so that we start to add in key performance indicators against our scheme employers as well. And one of those would be about measuring the quality data that they provide to us. So I hope that answers it around data quality. With regards to cyber, I think we had quite a detailed conversation about cyber at the last committee. So clearly pension funds are vulnerable because they hold considerable data. So one of the things that we are doing is that we're moving our admin system off-prem into the cloud with our current supplier, and what comes with that is a whole series of other protections. Their data centre is accredited to the appropriate ISO standard, etc. But obviously these types of attacks are ever sophisticated, so we have to be aware of it as well. We do verification when people call into us as well. We will be looking at doing an identity and verification service over time as well, so we can use real-time liveness checks on individuals that contact the fund. But yes, we also have worked with Aon and do have both our hygiene guidelines and our cyber risk strategy in draft format. I think Joe and I had a discussion earlier on in the week about bringing those reports to committee in July. But I think cyber security is the responsibility of everybody. As well, we have previously talked about scams as well, and shared the information that we give out. So there's a lot of activity underway. Thank you.
Super, thank you, Sarah. That's a good response. Have we got any other questions? This one, yes, Councillor Richard Butler. Thank you.
Yes, briefly, paragraph 9 refers to the pensions ombudsman. And it says that the sort of complaints and cases and issues seem to be rising. I'm not saying that's particularly against us, but in the sector as a whole. Are there any indications as to sort of why that may be? Is it a sign of, say, of some sort of systems weakness, or is it more of a case of people becoming more aware of an ombudsman and the ability to actually raise issues and complain? So really what I think I'm asking is given all the changes and no doubt there's pressures in the system as a whole, could they be related to the number of, or the increased number of ombudsman cases?
Thank you, Councillor Butler, for raising that about the ombudsman. Over to you, Sarah Stevenson. Thank you.
Thank you. I think possibly just to set some context about the complaints process.
Yeah.
So yes, we do have complaints from people. So when a complaint comes in, obviously we will look at it. We will try to resolve it at the earliest opportunity. But there is a process laid down by the Ombudsman. So it has to have had an internal consideration first. Then the member needs to complete a stage 1. So they will write in. Stage 1 currently comes into the Service Director for Customers, Governance and Employees. So that is then delegated down to myself for the admin authority, but all scheme employers are required to have their own stage 1 contact. So we will have a look at that complaint and say actually that stage 1 needs to be either considered by the admin authority or it has to be considered by the scheme employer. Once that's completed, obviously there's an outcome letter that goes out to the complainant. I'm sure that you can imagine that on occasions they don't agree with that adjudication, so they then have the right to go to stage 2, which comes into the admin authority in all cases, and both Tamsin and Nigel sit as stage 2 adjudicators. Again, people don't always like the outcome from stage 2, so then what would happen is that would then go into the Ombudsman themselves. They would then look at it and determine whether or not it's through sort of mediation you can get a resolution. Again, somebody could choose not to agree to that, so then it would go for a full pension ombudsman's judgment. I think it's fair to say that these sorts of complaints come in peaks and troughs. I think what I generally see since COVID is people are much more likely to complain. There was a complaint that came in this morning when we actually had a look at it. Actually, that was down to the members' complete lack of understanding of how the LGPS operates. So with that, obviously we tried to educate the member that actually under the LGPS and ill health retirement actually is a scheme employer's decision, not a decision by trustees, which it may well be within a private sector scheme. I think it's also fair to say, you know, we've got a sizable fund. We don't always get everything right. We do make mistakes, but also members of the public or members of the scheme make mistakes. So another one we dealt with quite recently, we haven't been able to pay somebody's pension because their sort code and account number they provided us, they filled in the form was incorrect. So I think it's a balance across all three. Yes, people are complaining more often, they're quite complex as well. But, you know, we do, so the one around the code and the account number, what we've done is actually we've implemented a bank modulus check right at the very beginning now of the process when that retirement pack comes in. So hopefully that should eliminate that type of thing happening again. Sometimes the software has created issues in that it's not done calculations correctly. That's sometimes not been found out until later down the line. And obviously you have to unpick that type of thing. The Ombudsman is looking for have you followed the correct process. And other sort of areas around payment of death grants, because people don't often like the outcome of that decision, which is at the absolute discretion of the organisation. Also, they often choose not to provide all the necessary information. I think I've talked before about blended families and the dynamics that that brings when there's sometimes, you know, money involved in how that's being divided amongst potential beneficiaries. So I think they come in peaks and troughs. We try to resolve at the earliest opportunity, but there is a prescribed process.
Gosh, I like your comment about people not necessarily understanding the LGPS, because I think we could all probably identify that to a certain extent, because it is extremely complicated. But yeah, I'm not surprised to hear there are more complaints coming in, not because necessarily because anything that we've done wrong, but simply because, as you suggested, there seems to be more of an awareness in general now out there about being able to complain about pretty much anything. So I guess, is that also adding to the general admin pressures that are plainly in place, and are these sort of all the work you're having to do on these complaints, is there a danger of them impacting on the day-to-day other activities, or is that too much of an in-depth question?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Richard Butler, for your second question on there. Quite a few people put hands up. Do you want to reply to that one, Sarah?
Can I? Yeah. With regards to obviously impact, generally they come to me.
Okay.
So I try and deal with as many as possible. I might need the team to give me some. So when did the retirement pack come in? What did you see? What did we do? What didn't we do? Etc. Some go out to the team. I think, yes, this is wrapped into, we had quite a discussion about admin resource last time, and it has been agreed that we'll do a deep dive on that risk. So absolutely looking at how do we manage complaints going forward, etc., would be part of that review. And I think Councillor Chapman was very supportive of that deep dive on admin. So yes, it can have an impact as well. The other thing I just wanted to add to my earlier comment was around independent financial advisors. So people do obviously take advice from IFAs. I think what we see is that often the IFA that people use, they haven't necessarily asked them that specific question about their experience of the LGPS and their understanding, because it's clear the questions we get asked from the IFA
that they have no understanding of the LGPS. So we're also educating our members, but also IFAs. I think there is a gap in the market if somebody's looking for a new career around being an IFA with that sort of, detailed experience.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. But a few question, and of course, Sarah Stevenson on her comprehensive reply. We have a couple more hands up. Neil, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, it sort of follows on in a way. That as a pensioner, I can say from experience that my knowledge of the local government pension scheme when I retired was pretty good. But since then, the rules have changed quite a bit, and I feel that there are a lot of members of this, active members, if you like, who don't really understand the rules anymore. And so therefore, I think that particularly when you've got things like early retirements or potential state pensions early and actuarial adjustments and all this kind of malarkey, I'm fairly sure that a lot of our members don't really get it. And I'm sure IFAs don't get it. And I wonder what steps, if any, we take to kind of educate our employees, if you like, as to what to expect from pension, which might actually minimise these kind of queries and questions that people have. But simply because I, for one, understood the old regulations inside out. But as soon as it all started to change and we had the pre-2014 service and what's going to happen to me when I retire, I guess I don't even really know myself, if I'm really honest. So I wonder what steps we take to educate our members.
Okay, thank you, Neil Timms, our pensioner representative, for a question on education of members. Over to you, Sarah Stevenson.
Thank you. I think Neil makes a really valid point there. I think, we do provide extensive information on the fund's website that has a lot of links to the really short bite-sized videos that the LGPS provide on their website, which, are really good. They are produced in layman's terms. They are easy to understand. So, what happens if I want to retire before state pension age? A little video there, so you can understand about pre and post 08, the care scheme, the reductions, etc. There are some worked up examples. Obviously, that is a self-serve opportunity. There is a fantastic Facebook group called LGPS Advice and Guidance. I'm a member of it. There's a lot of experts on that group, and lots and lots of questions get asked there. And again, the responses back are written in really good language for people to understand that as well. I think as part of that deep dive into admin resource, one of the things I think I would want us to be considering is what role, or for committee to understand, what role does committee want the employer support and compliance team to have with regards to running webinars for members, running those through scheme employers. We used to do road shows, we used to run member events, scheme employer events, and obviously those types of things. When we've been looking at resourcing and efficiencies and COVID, those types of things have been pared back. So I think there's probably a wider conversation to be had about, do we want to put more support into scheme employers? Do we want to put more support out there other than what's already available for our different categories of members as well? But also on that flip side, where does a person's personal responsibility sit here for actually understanding what they are paying into and what comes out of it at the end of the day?
Again, if you move house, you often will let the utility companies know, but you don't let your pension provider know. And obviously we've got the big National Pension Dashboard programme coming, which will start to, shall we say, reunite people with lost pensions as well. So I think there's a whole host of things. I think, you know, Neil, you're right, you've obviously always been engaged in the LGPS because of the role you had at Fire, so you've got good knowledge and experience. I certainly have friends that come to me and say, what does this mean? They bring their annual benefit statement. I'll probably start to charge them for that.
Annual benefit statement, all just study.
Yes, yeah. So with this, so for example, with the annual benefit statements coming out in August, we've looked at adding some other information into that, reminding people about they've got a death grant nomination on their record. This is who it's in favour of currently. Do you want to revise it? Do you want to, if you don't have one, do you want to fill one in? But that will then still require the action to be on the individual themselves to follow that through. So I think it's, you know, I think there's a raft of things for future discussion.
Thank you, Sarah, and over to you here again to help.
Yeah, just very quickly, I think as well, we mustn't overlook the fact that the employer has a responsibility to their employees. It's not just the pension fund. I think the employer has a responsibility to make sure that their employees are making informed decisions.
Yeah.
So just a view.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That question I can see is going to link into further agenda items for the future. You mentioned COVID and resource. Well, I, for one, would love this committee to discuss, let's get some roadshows up if we can, and some scheme employer events, obviously dependent on staffing resource, dependent on that. But I'd certainly like to see this on an agenda item so we can educate members on the scheme. That's a very good point raised, Neil. Any other items to add on this agenda item? No, thank you. So I will just say that report that's come before committee is just for noting. Thank you very much. So we now move on to right 11, make it feasible time. Agenda item number 7. This is membership of the Local Authority Pension Fund Forum, LAF. I'll just say it's got the extra F on. We've mentioned this before that there's two organisations, one with a single F and one with the double F. So this is membership of the Local Authority Pension Fund Forum. And before I kindly hand over to Townsend Roberts, our head of Pension Fund Investments, just want to remind members it's page number 8 of your agenda pack, and a kindly reminder of what that recommendation is. It's that the Pension Fund Committee was to approve the continued membership of LAF, which is the Local Authority Pension Fund Forum. Kindly ask for a seconder from members.
I second this, Chairman, please.
Lovely, thank you, Councillor Baz-Chowdhury, for seconding that. And over to you, Townsend Roberts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. LAP was formed in 1991 by a small group of local authorities with the aim of responding to environmental and employment issues, hostile takeovers and failures of corporate governance. I believe the Nottinghamshire Fund was one of the first members. LAP exists to assist administering authorities discharge their statutory responsibilities and promote the long-term investment interests of UK local authority pension funds. In particular, it seeks to maximise their influence as investors, to promote corporate social responsibility and high standards of corporate governance amongst the companies in which they hold an interest. LAP provides a unique platform for local authorities, drawing on decades of direct collaboration with every LGPS fund and established trusted relationships. With participation from nearly all LGPS funds, LAP enables councils to collectively and consistently express their concerns. LAP coordinates direct engagement with company chairs and boards on governance, climate and other material risks. Acting collectively significantly enhances influence. With over 80 local authority pension funds and several LGPS pools, members benefit from a powerful collaborative voice. This scale, representing over 425 billion in assets, increases pressure on companies to improve governance and behaviour. LAP is an organisation designed to represent the views of its membership. Across over 80 funds, establishing a consensus is not always easy, so members will not always agree with every element of LAP's engagement programme. However, every member has the opportunity to influence these views at business meetings or by standing for the executive, so is able to act to steer change. The Forum holds quarterly meetings. As approved in the February Training and Conferences report, 2 committee members and an officer can attend these meetings. The Investments Officer represents the Nottinghamshire Pension Fund at LAP meetings and provides regular reports to committee on these meetings. Members are encouraged to consider whether they would like to attend the LAP meetings. The Nottinghamshire Fund values LAP membership as supporting the fund's responsibility for their stewardship of its assets. Membership of LAP helps Nottinghamshire Pension Fund engage with companies to understand issues and promote best practice. LGPS Central Limited, the fund's pool, recognises LAP as a useful partner. LAP's engagement research materials are comprehensive and serve as an important reference for engagement efforts. LAP does not just engage companies, it also challenges regulators, influences policy, and advocates for reforms that support responsible investment and sound corporate governance. Through promoting corporate responsibility, reliable accounting, and strong governance, LAP helps safeguard the long-term value of local authority pension funds, reducing risks associated with misconduct, environmental failures, and governance weaknesses. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Townsend Roberts, for that comprehensive report on LAP, the local authority pension fund. I'm going to open this one up to members, that's elected members, pension fund reps and trade union reps. Have we got any questions? Oh, Councillor Stuart Matthews, over to you, you've got a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I notice on page 88.26 we paid £12,000 fee for this service. It does not manage any assets, does not directly improve returns, does not reduce costs elsewhere. It is not essential. We shouldn't be paying for it. Can we, engage in that responsibly without paying for duplication when we have we already pay for the advice from providers like Pensions and Investment Research Consultants Limited. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Stuart Matthews, for the question to do with financing LAP, I believe. Does anybody want to respond to that one? Townsend Roberts, thank you.
Firstly, thank you. Just because of a quirk of how pools have joined the funds, if Nottinghamshire were to leave, then the pool would have to pay, and that would then get recharged to us. So it wouldn't save us any money to leave. I would also say that the aim of LAP is to help improve returns in the long term by focusing and engaging with companies on long-term sustainability of investment returns. So I don't think it's true to say there is no added value as a result of the work from LAP.
Okay, thank you, Townsend. Oh, hang on, I think Councillor James Rawson first, and then Councillor Butler. Over to you, Councillor James Rawson. Thank you.
Just a quick one. Just trying to understand the £12,000 saving. It's not all about the £12,000, of course, but in principle. So if we withdraw, I'm guessing we pay the £12,000 in advance annually, probably. You're saying if we withdraw, they send us an invoice for £12,000, or if we withdraw, we don't get any of the £12,000 back. Is that what you're saying?
So the annual fee for membership of LAP is £12,000, and if we were to leave, we'd have to give 12 months notice. So there would be a delay before we no longer received an invoice. However, as the only fund who is part of LGPS Central who would not be in LAP under those circumstances, the pool, who currently is like an honorary member, without having to pay, would then need to pay instead, because that cost would be due to Nottinghamshire withdrawing, that would then get charged that extra cost from the pool. So the net impact financially to the pension fund is zero. This is not a cost benefit decision.
But that's just a 1 year implication in Australia. So we'd have an ongoing cost that replaces the £12,000 that we wouldn't be paying. And how much is the ongoing cost?
It'll be the same.
So it's £12,000 regardless whether we're in or whether we're out. It's a great membership club. I need to get one of those.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor James Wilson, for raising that point. Over to you, Councillor Richard.
On the same point, actually, I was really just going to pick up on the history of this. I think, given the scale of the operations of the pension fund and the importance of it in so many reasons, it would be very, in my opinion, unwise to think about walking away from this. Because there's safety in numbers, if you like, with the being part of a big pool and of similar organisations. So whilst no one likes to read the first sentence regarding subscription fee and all the rest of it, bear in mind what it says at the very end of that paragraph. It says there is no financial impact on the decision to continue or cease membership. So I think from experience, and plus the fact that we've been part of this for 34, 35 years. And it's worked pretty well for us. And that's really just my observation, I would suggest.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Richard Butler. I think Councillor Graham Chapman had his hand up first, and then I'll move across. Thank you.
Our turnover, our volume that we deal with is 600 billion, is it? 6, 7,
The value of the fund or the money which goes?
Yeah, we're talking about 12 grand, right? I thought we've just got to get a bit of perspective on what happens, very often with councillors is that we end up spending a lot of time on minutiae as we understand it, because everything else is too complicated. And I think we're in danger of spending a lot of time on minutiae. The arguments are, first of all, we're going to have to pay it anyway, so why bother? Right. Second, we just got to get perspective on what this is. It is the equivalent, for example, of paying the fees to the CPI, or it's the equivalent of paying your union fees. Right, if you remember the union defends your interests. It's called collective bargaining. I'm astonished, I'm surprised actually, it's only 12 grand. Right? I think we're getting away with it quite rightly. So on that basis, I just don't think it's an argument. We've got to keep perspective on all this. I think we're doing great, wonderful deal on looking at the minutiae, shaving a few quid off here and there, and the danger is you just miss the big picture.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Graham Chapman. So we're talking about finance. Yeah, to tag on to that, because Councillor James Wilson did discuss finance earlier on. James, do you want to raise your point?
I think your point, Graham's a very fair one. Don't think for a second, in my opinion, is driven just by £12,000 here. They're not. There's more to it than that. But I just wanted to highlight the fact that, or be sure of the fact that we say £12,000 is for other reasons. Further through the paper, we don't think this is the right thing to do.
Thank you. Thank you for clarification.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Baz Chowdhury, you had your hand up, and then Councillor Barry Answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Right. First of all, £12,000 saving, how we look at it. The lab itself costs more money if you look at it, for example, if we go to the conference. So that is, we have to pay for it, basically. So we need to be in count for total cost to keep this membership. Are we going to benefit if we're coming out? Are we going to, what is the, there's other organization out there, which is we already member. So maybe £12,000 saving plus there's other amount included would be more saving total cost. So I would leave this to the committee to decide. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bass-Chowdhury, and yes, Townsend to respond.
Yeah, sorry, but I know the financing point is a bit complicated because of the unusual implications of leaving, but there, if we leave, it does not save any money. So that's the first thing. I guess the element to the conference is an element we could save, but it does include a place at the conference, but travel and accommodation is additional. However, we could stay as a member of LAC and not attend the conference. That is another option.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was actually a good point raised by Councillor Bass-Chowdhury. So in addition to the payment, we would pay for travel and accommodation, whereas I think with some other training conferences we've attended, there's been no charge to the pension fund, Nottinghamshire County Council. So, yeah, have we got any other questions? Oh yes, of course we did. Councillor Barranza, over to you, Barry.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm bewildered that we have to pay the 12,000 is neither here nor there what we're spending. It means that if we don't pay it, we're paying by the back door. I don't know what if Pango, where you have to pay 12,000, and if you don't pay it, you pay it. I mean, I've never heard such ridiculous things in my life. The reason I'm against it is just looking at what they push. For example, push net zero commitments. Well, I don't want to push net zero commitments. It sounds like a Labour Party government statement. And support climate resolutions. Well, I don't want to support. I mean, listen, we all want to be green, and we all want to do nothing right. What we don't want to do is be crazy like the government is at the moment in pushing net zero commitments. So an influence company strategy. You know, what sort of strategy with influence? You know, when we're making investments and looking at companies, I expect the people that we're looking at, the people that we're advising us, to give us these statements, to give us this information. We shouldn't have to have somebody else to tell us it's right or it's wrong. So, you know, on the basis of that, I'm afraid I can't support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barranza. Raises a point there about net zero. We have come across where some net zero investments aren't that competitive. So we have found that previously on some investments. Tamsin Rabbit.
Yeah, just to pick on a couple of minor points on that, just to say that there is nothing that LAPS is currently engaging on which contradicts the pension fund policies, but they are very open. People, I mean, Kieran will confirm that people go along to those meetings and they don't always agree, and they do engage and have discussions about the right way forward. So if members of the committee feel that some of the topics on which LAP is engaging are not appropriate, they would very much, you could attend the meetings and try and change the engagement which happens at LAP on our behalf.
Thank you, Tamsin Roberts. Have we got any other items to add on this agenda item? Yes, Councillor James Wilson, over to you. Oh, yeah, Stuart.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you look through it and, you know, do we want to be associated with every campaign? You know, do we, you know, if we don't control the message, do we carry the risk? You know, this is what it seemed to be. When you look through the pages, and it just seems very repetitive, and we don't need, you know, we've got so many people doing this, and we're just repeating what other people are doing on the same system. It just seems crazy.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. Councillor Wilson, over to you.
I've got this from two spaces. First, my own principal feelings and net zero, and I'm sure many have got different views, and so they should have it. That's how democracy works. But you know, without a doubt, if you look at some of the things that happen in the media now, a number of these green companies that have made a hell of a lot of money off government subsidies, and ultimately the people that pay these energy bills, which are our electorate, some of the warnings that have been sent out by some individuals, politically charged individuals who could hold a lot of power in the future. These businesses could become very unstable very, very quickly. And if I look at it from a pensioners' perspective, forgetting my position on net zero, which I'm happy to debate with others, it's a risk, and it's a risk just like anything else. It's a risk like the dot-com bubble was a risk. It's a risk like Iran wars causing a risk. And for me, if net zero does change direction significantly in this country, some of the investments could go downhill very, very quickly. I'm sure that the electorate wouldn't thank us for ignoring those facts on the back of emotional green opinion. What matters is the cash, and if the cash looks like it's at risk, I think we need to take that into account. So one on the net zero side, I can't support it. But from the ESG side as well, as a I've spent a career in commercial finance, I believe in free markets. I don't believe in interference from bodies and opinion. The markets will perform perfectly well if you leave them well alone. And I think the minute we've got an institution here that's looking to steer our pension money based on political beliefs and other opinions, which we may all agree or not agree with, it just doesn't feel right to me. And so I'll be supporting my colleagues in not supporting the motion.
Thank you, Councillor James Rawson, for pushing your points across. Councillor John Clark, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So I take that's an amendment, is it, to this? So as a no. But you're amending the recommendation now to they will be against, and I presume other people on this side will want to be for. So we need to take a vote. I mean, it's quite clear. Graham has said quite clear. You know, it's 7 million in the fund, we're talking about 12,000. I think it's going to be a bit better.
Okay, right, I'll just add to that. This agenda item isn't for noting, it will be an agenda item where we do vote. So the members will have a choice. You will be able to vote for, against, or abstain. But we're not there yet. We're having debate, which is what we do really well here at Nottinghamshire Pension Fund Committee. We do debate and we do challenge things on a whole range of items. So I really welcome this debate so far. Councillor Baz-Chowdhury, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just highlight Councillor John Clark. Well, what I can say is, if we're coming out, but we're coming in, basically, it doesn't make sense. So eventually, this door is open. So it's no big deal. You know, a £12,000 buy, it is a big deal. If you overall, for time being, if you save, that's fine. But if you can't save, you have to find alternative ways. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Baz-Chowdhury. Yes, over to you, Saffron Khan, Councillor at Nottingham City.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to read to the point. Obviously, I'm hearing a lot of people talking about the monetary aspect of this. Obviously, money that we pay in. But what kind of reputational, would it be a reputational damage if we withdrew from this with other pension funds already obviously being part of it? And I've just seen this really important thing that I just want to read out to members. It says LEP helps safeguard the long-term value of the local authority pension fund. So would that put us at risk?
Okay, thank you, Saffron, for raising that point. Right, I've got a few hands up coming up, which is really good. I think, Graham, you were first, because I did see you in that eye line, and then we'll move over to this side. So over to Councillor Graham Chapman.
I don't want to get into the debate about green issues and net zero. But ultimately, nothing's done about it. All the assets that we're investing in are going to deteriorate. It's going to have a massive, massive impact. Right now, we then go and say, well, we can't do freight in this country. But there's two issues there. One is you've got to set an example. And the second is, probably the future of energy and the security of energy will depend on green energy, whether we like it or not. And I also think the future of a lot of our industry will depend on that, both in terms of production and in terms of usage. But from your point of view, I would say to you, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. This organisation is far greater than a green lobby. And I don't think it's even a green lobby. So I put 2 points to you. One is that it's far wider and its impact on, say, on government policy could be quite important, particularly if we all get together collectively as pension funds. But the second is reform now controls a large number of county councils. If you want to change things, you do it through your other reform managed county councils in order to change the nature of that. That is the way to do it. But taking it back to that is not appropriate. And I think we've lost the argument about 12 grand. I think that will overcome that, and I think that's understood. So you're then left with, do you stay in and try and reform it, given the power you've now got, right, controlling so many county councils, and so many pension funds in so many ways. So I would say to you, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's going to be petulant, and there will be a reputation impact. People will be saying, well, it's reform, behaving like a bunch of kids. And I don't think you are actually. I think we've had a very, very good committee. I'm not saying it's any better, but it's good before, to tell you the truth. I mean, it was brilliant under Labour.
I loved it, like me.
But it's been good since.
Okay, thank you, Greg. You've raised a few points. I will just touch on the net zero. Newark is going to end up with 10% of its landmass under these solar farms. It's getting that way. We've got these NSIPs. I brought them up before, the National Strategic Infrastructure Projects. We've got elected members here around the table where there's very large NSIP projects. We're talking about large-scale solar farms, One Earth solar farm, and we've got the Elements Green Great North Solar Park. Altogether, that's 10,000 acres. Plus, over the years, we've had these, I can't say smaller because they're still substantial size, solar farms across the county. So net zero is having an impact in the county and for our residents who will engage with us. I'm sure, no doubt, our surgeries every Friday. A number of residents will bring up every month at least the solar farms and the NSIPs, and they're asking me about progress on those. And some of the members presenting at the planning inspectorate committees against those NSIPs, myself included. That's just one point. Greg, you raised a number of points there, and as always, you've got a very strong knowledge base. We have a few hands up on this side. I think Councillor Harry on first, and then we'll go down further down and see Councillor Barry has his hand up as well. Over to you, Councillor Harry on.
Thank you, Chair. Don't think this works.
No, it doesn't work.
So yes, in my opinion, we need to continue membership of this forum because of two reasons I have. One is the collective engagement through this forum, and it provides a greater influence than acting individually. And second reason I have is which is access to specialist research and coordination strength, informed decision making. So these are the things we get from this forum. So in my opinion, we need to continue with membership. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harry on. I'm going to now move over to Councillor Barry. So you had your hand up first. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we ought to have £12,000 worth invested in heating in this room. I think that, to think that we're spending absolutely millions and millions and billions of pounds on investments and not taking any advice at all is our cuckoo land. But to think that, that an organisation costing £12,000 a year can influence us spending all this money on our investments, I'm just like the tail wagging the dog. I just can't understand why we're even interested in it. As far as I'm concerned, we need to push away from anything that's net zero commitments and climate resolutions and carry on looking after our residents and our pensioners to the best interest that we think for our county. And forget about what we want to do. We've seen, as the chairman's already said, there's enough damage being done here with regards to on fertile good land for growing growing food and what have you. And anybody that wants to make some influence on somebody, I just think anybody should try to influence that in any more strength at all. It's just a cuckoo and we should just get shot.
Thank you, Councillor Barry, for that. Now I'm going to move over to James Rawson, and then we're going to move back up to that end of the table. Over to you, Councillor James Rawson.
Thank you, Chair. I enjoy listening to Councillor Chapman's perspectives. I genuinely do. And I know we come from different opinions, but I'm a fan of you learn more.
Listen to you now and again.
Not
probably today. Not all the time.
But I enjoy debate. It's good for all of us. We all get the opportunity to learn something new. So I'm sure we agree on that. And I think we'll also agree that the most important thing is the value of the investment. So if we just park the tactic for a second, the fact it's net zero, which, you know, not agitates, but, you know, it's an interesting topic. If we just focus on, do we think staying in an industry, let's call it something else, not have to call it net zero, but keeping our investments in something like net zero, which has significant challenge, should there be a change in government? There are already letters being written to energy companies that say, if there's a new government coming up, all these subsidies will be pulled. That means all these farms and all this solar and all these wind farms are going to lose a hell of a lot of money and going to be in a real mess. And I think regardless of the green credentials and arguments, we need to put the value of the pension fund first, avoid that risk. And if it's heavily into ESG, then we should back away. For an investment perspective, never mind the fact that it's a green issue.
Okay, thank you, Councillor James Ralston raised the point there, potential change in governments having different influences and aspirations. Tamsin Ravitch wants to raise a point.
Yes, just a clarification here, just in case I've not communicated clearly the nature of this organisation. So this organisation does not manage any of our investments. It does not dictate or decide any of our investments. All it does is engage with the boards of some of the investments that we are already holding. So it's not going to change what we invest in, whether we stay members or not. The other thing to consider is if we are not a member of LAC, the engagement that's going on at the moment, that I understand some members aren't necessarily in agreement with all of the elements, that will continue without us. If we remain in LAC, there is the possibility of attending LAC meetings and changing the nature of that engagement. And if you believe that that will be for the benefit of the pension fund over the longer term, I feel that's the right decision. So, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tamsin. We had a hand up at this, right, got two. So I'm going to go to Councillor Richard Butler and then we'll go to Councillor Mike in Trainer. So Richard, over to you first.
Again, it doesn't work. I'm astonished that we've got into this debate over this.
I'm not.
Maybe not.
We agree again.
But I'm no, seriously worried about this. Why on earth have you made such a fuss now about net zero, which we've all got our various opinions about, when that is just a part of the whole pension system? Read the report that has been written by our professional officers from paragraphs 10 to 17, showing what the advantages are of being a member of LAC. And as I mentioned earlier on, we've been a member since 1991. And then read paragraph 18, which is the single paragraph showing any potential negative of being part of LAC. If you leave LAC, we'll go running off little Nottinghamshire all by itself, trying to take on and compete with the rest of the country in pension schemes. Would be a laughing stock, and it would, and the amount of ill feeling and bad will that we would get as an authority and as a pension scheme, both with other pension scheme operators and colleagues and authorities who are in that, but also, crucially, I would suggest, with our pensioners and future pensioners who are relying on us to get the right outcomes and all the rest of it, we could not possibly hope to have such a good pension scheme that we have got if we hadn't got the advice and the input of the other operators. So to pick up on your net zero fascination is, I would suggest, completely inappropriate for this committee. If you're going to talk about net zero, you should be talking about that to things like planning committees, not this one. So really, I would implore you, please, to think really carefully about this, because the potential implications I would suggest are even more serious than just the worries you've got about the net zero. Which incidentally, I rather agree with your negative comments about that, but that's not for this committee. This committee is about the performance of the pension scheme, and our pension scheme is not just all about net zero. You've got to think of the unintended consequences if you go down this route.
Thank you, Councillor Richard Butler. I'm just going to add a point here. As a committee, we do challenge on a range of items. For example, we started it in September on the investment management fees. Previous administrations possibly didn't look into those type of investments in such a short period of time like we have done since this new administration. Let's park net zero then to one side, and let's look at, there's a perception, I guess, that LAP could be seen as not just engaging with investment fund managers, companies, businesses, blue chip multinationals, but also could be seen as lobbying. I understand that they do work alongside a limited company called PIRC. So it's not just LAP, it's PIRC. I think that perhaps some of the membership funds that we all pay into LAP then goes to PIRC. Can I just ask, Tamsin, can you just give us just a minute, really, a minute or two, of what PIRC is and their connection with LAP? I think that might be helpful, because so we've got the LAP and we've got PIRC, that are two separate entities, but they're very intertwined with one another. Thank you.
I will do my best. Kieran will correct me if I'm wrong. So LAP is an association. So the members that join form an association to act together. Because LAP is only an association, I believe they use PIRC, who are a company, to form some of the engagement. Any engagement they do on LAP's behalf should be in accordance with the instructions provided by LAP. PIRC also operate other services. They used to operate our proxy voting service for us before we went into form, and the form now provides that service to a different organisation. That's probably all I can say.
Okay, thank you. So I imagine it's officers at PIRC that might do most of the engagement then with companies, investment funds, and Councillor Richard Butler says this would be a votable item for staff. Say, let's say hypothetically a committee leaves, then because this committee is challenged, which we are challenging robustly, other committees may look and think, well, hang on, they've asked some pretty pertinent questions here. We'll have a look now, and they might end up leaving as well. So, but we'll park net zero because there's loads of other issues. I've just touched upon now that LAP engages with a limited company as well, that perhaps not everybody was aware of. We had another hand up here. It was Councillor Mike Introni first. I know your microphone's working, and then we'll go down to Councillor James Rawson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will talk to the agenda item rather than waffling on about something that takes up one line of the 20 lines on engagement theme. So that help and give us oversight with regard to climate risk, social risk, performance risk, and importantly, ensuring that we have reliable accounting. What I would like to ask, and I'd like to ask Tamsin, perhaps Richard, is you've mentioned that there's no, whatever on the £12,000, it doesn't have a financial impact. Would you be able to explain why that is? And secondly, and I don't know if this is you, Tamsin, or you, Lynn, sorry, membership of LAP, how does that help improve returns? Because if we do get improved returns as a result, what may the absolute scale of that be? What do we think? Is there an opinion on that? And how does that compare to £12,000 that we may or may not save according to Tamsin? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Michael Trayley. You raised a couple of points on there. Right, who wants to field this one? Is it Tamsin or William?
I can do the second one, maybe leave Tamsin the first one.
Okay, yeah, that sounds fair.
I mean, the way that it works is that LAP engage companies to making better companies, to engage in more sustainable practices, which in the long term should deliver better returns. And I think there's pretty good evidence to say that in the round they do. I've been listening to this debate for 40 minutes over £12,000. I think you should be spending more of your time on much, much bigger things of this in front of us. We've got a whole investment report to consider. Managers, we really need to bring this conversation to an end, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you. I don't think I think we have 40 minutes, but I take your point. We're now going to have a maximum now 5 minutes on this agenda item because it is midday and our agendas often do run away because we do have a debate. So 5 more minutes. So I'll take some more questions and then we'll go to
my other half of the question answer.
Yes, we'll do, Mike, because you did ask that question first. Tamsin.
Okay, this is a bit of an anomaly. When pools were first created, there was a discussion about them joining LAP, and the decision made by LAP was there would be no charge to the pool where all of the member funds were members. So in the event that one of the member funds ceases to be a member, then the pool would then be liable for a membership charge at the same rate. And because that cost was generated by a specific fund, it would then get recharged to that fund. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
So what we've clarified is that it isn't going to cost us £12,000 to remain, and the independent advisor is telling us that it helps our return asset values being a member of that. Just
Okay.
make that point. We've got the head of pension fund investments and the independent advisor telling us it doesn't cost us any more money and it's likely to cost our pensioners money if we're no longer a member of that. I'll leave that with members of the committee.
Okay, I think I should clarify something there. I think if we were to leave, there would be very little difference in the return to pension funds simply because the activities of that would continue. So I don't think it's the case that leaving would actually cost us money, but I do think it's kind of part of our.
Did you say that there was irrefutable evidence that there are benefits to being a membership?
Yes. My point is that the activities would continue even without Nottinghamshire being a member of that.
Okay, thank you. Right, we're going to do 2 more questions. We're going to Councillor Burt Bingham put his hand up, and then we'll go over to Saffron on this side, and then we'll sum up, and then we will go to a vote. So, Councillor Burt Bingham, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've been listening to the debate with interest. I'll ignore the £12,000 bit. I was going to ask for William's opinion, so thank you very much, William, for that. We are, in general terms, we're wearing our committee membership hats here for the pension fund, not councillors, but I won't touch on net zero because it's destroying industry and putting energy prices up, and that's the only way they're going to go. We've had discussions in the past previous, and thanks for your comments down at this end of the table. We've had comments in the past about the cost or diminishing returns of net zero investments, woke investments, which have been raised at previous meetings. I don't like surprises, and I think today we ought to pause this vote until we've had time to discuss more with Tamsin and, if necessary, William, the basis of this withdrawal, because I don't think it's something we should just rush into today, because we only on the inside will we influence a change in the way these things are being implemented. That's my opinion, but it's only one opinion, of course. So as I say, it's coming at very short notice. I think we need time to discuss it, debate it, and very much appreciate that conversation with Tamsin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bert. It would have been good if you'd have come a bit earlier today. raise that
16 nowadays.
raise that issue with me before the committee took place. Right, we've got
days ago.
right. We've okay.
So predetermined.
So no, it doesn't. No, I'm here. No. I'll just answer this. I am well. Apart from today, I think he beat me to it today. Councillor Stuart Matthews, but I'm here at 7 o'clock every morning when I'm here, and members come earlier before committee meetings to read documents, which is what you guys have all been doing. Right, so no more questions now on this side. I did say to Councillor Saffron Carr, you would have the last question. Over to you, Saffron. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I want to just mention my experience on this committee. Since I joined, I've done a lot of training on the committee, and the one main thing that's always resonated with me, and I've been told to share it with all members, is our fiduciary duty as people, as members on this board. And we should be looking at the investments and not looking in other things. And obviously, LEP is obviously part of a larger pool of pension funds. And we talk about obviously withdrawing from this. And from my personal perspective, I think that is the wrong thing to do. The chair mentioned if we were to withdraw, other pension funds might consider debating this. But on the other flip side, imagine if they didn't, and we were the only pension fund that had withdrawn. And that was the wrong thing to do. And also, just to make the final point, somebody mentioned about moving away from net zero, and it's not the right thing because governments could change. I think let's not plan ahead too far, because as we all know around this table as politicians, elections are not guaranteed for anyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Saffron Carr. I think irrelevant of whatever the outcome is on this agenda item, I do think that perhaps investigation into pension pool and regarding payments, if there's an honorary member, to have a conversation with LGPS Central on that one. Right, so we've had some really good debate as always. We've stuck to the 5 minutes. Have you got any more to add, Tamsin, onto this one, or should we just go to the vote? So just to sum up, it was to continue the membership of LAP with 2 Fs. Okay, Local Authority Pension Fund Forum. So we're now going to take.
Councillor Burt Bingham made a proposal, didn't you?
I did to pause it. And one of the questions would be, when is the renewal decision date? When is that required by? When does the renewal come up? For example, there's no net cost difference. I understand that. So what's the rush?
And if you're making that proposal to suspend the decision on this, I'd second that.
Okay, I think with regard to the payment, if I'm right, you go by the financial year, but I think the payment generally goes out around about June or July time, and it's administered by the West Midlands Pension Fund. They do that. I might be wrong on this one. Okay, so the payment would be June or July. We are at the March Pensions Committee, so we would have another pension committee before that time, and the way before the payment went out, June and July, just saying that. Okay, right, so right, Faz, because you're vice chair. Yeah,
Right. Now, are we going to vote on this, or are we going to, Chairman, looking to things go for a vote? Or are you going to?
Well, you've had a proposal from Councillor Bingham and seconded by me to maybe not take this decision today, so you might need to take a vote on that.
Okay. This is the first time that we've had. Oh, actually, no, I don't think it is actually. No. So I will honour that vote proposed by Burt Bingham and seconded by Richard Butler to defer it. This will be a vote for and against and abstain. Okay. I'll honour that because you brought it up. So the amendment was to postpone the vote. So we're going to go straight for those for for the pause. Okay, right, so that's majority. Okay. Right, so we had, thank you, 50 minutes on that one, and then we decided to defer it to another committee meeting. Right. So we are now on to agenda item number 8. That's the Independent Advisors Report. As always, William Bourne, fountain of knowledge, and we're really lucky to have William.
It wasn't March the 2nd, it was.
Yes, yes, that's right. Yes, okay, right. Before I move recommendations, which is page 92 of the agenda pack, the reminder of that recommendation that the report of the advisors to the Nottinghamshire Pension Fund Committee have been noted, and I'm going to ask for a seconder for that.
Second, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Baz Chowdhury. I'm now kindly going to hand over to William Bourne. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. I'm tempted to say no for something simple. I wrote this report 3 weeks ago, and my goodness, events have moved on since then. I think I'm going to start on the longer term impacts of the war on our pension fund assets, because that's really what matters in the long term. The obvious ones are inflation. First of all, primary inflation that's happening now to oil, fertilizers, and actually there's quite a range of other things that are affected too. I'm more worried about the secondary aspects, the kind of psychology that is just going to embed inflation in things like wage demands and everything else. And I've always said inflation is a major threat to this fund. This simply amplifies that. Second major impact in the long term is got to be higher bond yields, both because America is getting more indebted, but also because of higher inflation. Now, I'll come back to the short term in a minute, but in the longer term, this means the higher bond yields. And that is bad for any kind of long-term asset, whether it is equities, infrastructure, real estate, all their valuations in the long term are going to come down. And I think the third long-term impact is this must accelerate the decline of the US as the world's major power. They are already quite heavily indebted. They're running a major, they're running a 6-7% primary deficit. This war is expensive. We all know it's expensive. And empires decline when they run out of money or they cannot refinance. And I'm not suggesting it's tomorrow. I'm not suggesting it's 5 years' time, but it just is accelerating that process of decline. So I think we need to work out what that means for assets in the longer term. From war, I'll go on to Walsh, the new Federal Reserve president. He's made it very clear that he is focused on helping the man in the street and not Wall Street. And what that means is that the environment we've been used to for the last 30 years, where whenever something bad happens to markets, the Fed has ridden to the rescue with QE, just putting more money into the world. And that's no longer a given. There's a greater chance of a really nasty financial crisis happening and the government not coming to the rescue of markets. If I then move slightly to the short term, in the middle of the war, the one thing you cannot afford is a financial crisis. So actually, the Americans, they have been using QE to try and reduce the risks in the market at the moment. And I know that from the data. But I don't think they can carry on doing it for very long. And similarly, they've been keeping bond yields from going up too much by just funding a lot more at the very short term. And that means there's more demand for short term, sorry, more supply of short term, but less supply of bond yields. And that's the way they've been keeping bond yields down. So that, I think, is the explanation of why equity markets have been really quite resilient, considering everything that's going on. I think I said at the bottom of my paper, I'm less positive about equities than I've been for a long time. I stand by that. In the long term, I think this is definitely a negative for equities. I'm just saying in the short term, it may take a bit longer than you think for that to feed through. And I haven't even talked about the possibility of recessions, because I'm not in any way predicting it, but given what's going on, given the fact that interest rates aren't going to come down as much as Trump hoped, given the fact that bond yields are rising gently, recession's got to be a possibility. And that, again, is going to be bad for equities. So I'm afraid it's not a very positive message. And all I can say is that we are as a fund, we are quite well diversified. We've actually been overweight equities. I think it's still probably worthwhile rebalancing back to whatever SAA we decide this afternoon, because we're probably going to find we're overweighted at the moment. Let me stop there.
As always, William, very comprehensive and on the money, pardon the pun, with your reports there. Right, have we got any questions or items that we'd like to raise for William's report, which is the noting? Anybody here? No, thank you. Right, so just say that report was for noting. Don't need to vote on it. So that's agenda item number 8. Right, 12:15. We are slightly behind schedule, but we are getting there. So agenda item number 9 is the fund valuation and performance quarter 4. Before I hand over to Tamsin, I want to, sorry, yes, it's Kieran. Yes, it's Kieran. I'm going to read this one. So it's Kieran, and kind of reminder to you folks with your very large agenda packs, it's on page 104 of the agenda pack. The recommendation that the Nottinghamshire Pension Fund Committee notes the contents of the fund valuation and performance report. Now, before I kindly hand over to Kieran Guilfoyle, I'll require a seconder for this item.
Second, Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baz Chowdhury. And now over to you, Kieran. It's all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report is to inform the Nottinghamshire Pension Fund Committee of the value of the pension fund at the end of the latest quarter and provide information on performance of the fund. The table in paragraph 3 shows the valuation at the end of December and at the end of September and value a year ago. The fund investments have increased by 240 million, which is 3% since the previous quarter, by 860 million, which is 12% since last year. Paragraph 6 shows a more detailed analysis of valuations by portfolio, and paragraph 8 shows the income and expenditure for the year to December and the annual figures for the 24-25 comparison. Paragraphs 9 to 21 relate to the fund's holdings in fossil fuel companies and investments in sustainable equities and renewable energy. There are a number of caveats applying to this disclosure, which are explained in the report. Over the long term, it is anticipated that fossil fuels will decrease as a portion of the fund, and that investment in sustainable equity and renewable energy will increase, but this trend will not be smooth. At the end of December, we had an estimated 141 million, which is 1.7% of the fund, invested in fossil fuel companies, and sustainable renewable energy investments amounted to 570 million, 7% of the fund. This is lower than the previous quarter figure due to a reclassification of the IBON Diversified Growth Fund, which is no longer classed as being an investment in sustainable equity. That's a decision by IGON. Members are reminded that a more thorough assessment of our exposure to fossil fuels through our equity investments is provided by the LGPS Central's carbon risk analysis. The core index portfolio section reflects the equity market movements over the last quarter. These investments now under pool management, as LGPS Central has an oversight arrangement for the legal and general passive funds. Responsibility for voting on the holdings within these funds was transferred to LGPS Central, so our common strategy will apply equally to holdings in the core index. This arrangement came into effect in January 2025. The Schroders portfolio shows the regional analysis of holdings, purchases and sales during the period. The LGPS Central portfolio shows the investments made in the pool, and Aberdeen have continued to manage our property portfolio. The specialist portfolio section shows the composition and valuation of the specialist portfolio and the transactions during the quarter. The section on responsible investment activity summarises some of the responsible investment activity which has taken place during the quarter on behalf of the fund. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kieran. Again, another comprehensive report as we're used to from our officers. Does anybody have a question or an item they'd like to raise for Kieran on this one? No? Okay, so that's agenda number 9, and I'll just say that recommendation reminder that the Nottinghamshire Pension Fund Committee notes the contents of the fund valuation and performance report, and it's just for noting only. Right, 12:20. We're now on to agenda number 10, which is a work programme. And before I kindly hand over to Tamsin Rabbit to introduce the report, I'd like to move the recommendation on page 106 of your agenda pack. Kindly remind me again, folks, of what that is. It's that the committee considers whether any amendments are required to the work programme. As always, going to need to request a seconder for agenda item number 10.
I second this, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vaz-Chowdhury. It's all yours now. Over to you, Tamsin Rabbit. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In the appendix, you can see the work programme for the rest of the committee meetings of the current cycle. The committee is asked to identify any additional reports required. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Tamsin. Do any committee members, pension reps, trade union reps have any questions of Tamsin on this agenda item number 10? Councillor Richard Butler, yes, please.
Don't groan.
No, you're okay.
But it's not so much, it's not a question really, it's just a suggestion, given what we decided a little while ago about the LAP. Should that be coming back to maybe the April meeting? Have you second? It's just, I'm just making the point that you might need to do that.
Yeah, good point, Councillor Richard Butler. I would expect, because that item's been deferred, because I wanted further information, that it would come again to follow-up committee. Next committee meeting will be roughly in about 6 weeks. So my expectation is it would come up again in April.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Richard Butler. Any more items to add on this agenda item number 10? No, okay, right, so I'll just say that report was for noting. Finally, we're now on to agenda number 11. The heating didn't actually come on, so it is rather chilly in there still. Yes. So, members of the general public, you don't realise how cold this room's been today, but agenda item number 11 is exclusion of the public. So I've got to read this out. We will now move to part of the agenda that proposes that we meet in a closed session to consider the exempt information in agenda items number 12 and 13. I therefore invite the committee to resolve that the public be excluded from the remainder of the meeting. That's you guys online, on the grounds that the discussions are likely to involve the disclosure of exempt information, catch my breath, as described in Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, and in the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing that information. Quite a long one to read out. I'll need a seconder for that one.
Second is Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vaz-Chowdhury. Members, can we have a show of hands on agenda 11, exclusion of the public? Those for? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Thank you very much, general public. We're now just going to wait for the live transmission on YouTube to end. Thank you.